إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, when He created us to worship Him alone. So this is the purpose of our life, and the purpose of our life in general terms and in specific terms. And for us to be truthful with ourselves, with the Creator of the heavens and the earth, we need to put that in evidence and proof that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from head to toe. If this is the only purpose of our existence, and that would redefine what worship is, not according to what people think, but according to the deen of Islam, the comprehensive way of life, all of our parts of our bodies, all of our actions, everything that we say, any situations that we are in, any relationship has to be according to the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Once we have this comprehensive meaning, this is what worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from head to toe means. And we have been talking about the hands and how this is a great bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He provided for us these hands in which we are honored as human beings to use them. And there's so much great benefits and many great means for us to use, and people who interact and they have the interaction between their hands and their minds and their legs and their eyes and all the different senses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us to give this perfect harmony in one's body. That definitely needs for the believers to be constantly grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that we use them for the sake of Allah, to do what is good, to spread what is good, to bring what is benefiting, and to stay away from sins, because this is not what it's been created for. It's not been created for people to spread corruption on the face of earth, to use them for killing or bloodshed or bribery or stealing, or whatever different means that people would use their hands in a way that it's a sinful act. So once a person is aware of that, and we will be questioned about it in the Day of Judgment, and it will witness for the person or against him in the Day of Judgment, then the matter is very serious. And a person can use one's hand in doing something that is haram, whether it's stealing, and we know the punishment of stealing in the Qur'an and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, a severe punishment in this life and in the hereafter. In this life, for the person, if things are applied in the proper way, his hands to be cut off. Why? Because he committed a very severe act. Some people, they see the punishment as very harsh. This is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why people would see it this way? Because of two reasons. They don't see the crime as a severe crime, and they do not see the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a severe crime. In the religion of Islam, transgressing the limit to take the wealth of others is a very severe crime. That the punishment for it is something to lead for cutting the hands, because it's a severe one. This is how the weight of it in the religion of Islam. And a person should have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submit ourselves to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many different forms of stealing, whether it's deceiving, bribery, which is all major sins, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned them in the clear hadith, using usury or interest, in which a person would use the loans to gain more money, in which in the religion of Islam, loans is not a transaction that a person can profit from. This is a good deed. And once a person gives someone a loan, immediately he gets half of that amount as charity, as the reward of charity, as the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith in Sunan Ibn Majah. So more things to be avoided, and it's all brings what is evil. It does not bring what is good, it brings what is evil for a person on the individual level and for the society in large. The same thing when a person is working in a company, for example, or for a company, and he is exclusive for them at a certain time from, say, for example, from 8 to 5. This is a contract. That this time is for them, it's not for the person. It's not for the personal benefit of the individual, and in return they would give him a certain salary and so on. And if he or she accepted such conditions as long as it's halal, as long as a person is not working in an institution that deals with haram, sinful acts, directly or indirectly. And as long as the job itself is something that is permissible, then the person has to fulfill the rights that are mentioned in the contract. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to honor contracts and to respect them and so on. And when it comes to the ruling here, is that the person should do the obligations, of course. If it's time for the salah, that means the person has to do the obligatory salah. If it's close, if he has the means to do that in the congregational prayer, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered, and as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was his way. If a person would not fulfill the points of the contract, this is a form of deceiving. The person would be earning what is haram, wasting one's time, cheating, not using the time for the benefit of what the contract is for. All of this is a matter of trust that the person has to witness. The meaning of the lower hand that we heard earlier, we heard last time about the two types of hands, where the Prophet ﷺ said that اليد العليا خير من اليد السفلى, that the higher hand is better than the lower hand. And we talked about the higher one, the one that gives, and the lower one is the one that takes. So taking, in all the different means that we heard before, it's all sinful acts, stealing or bribery or not fulfilling the contracts of others and so on. But also one of these negative means of taking the wealth from others is through begging. And begging or asking for people's money, right, this is something that a Muslim should definitely avoid and stay away from. And the original ruling for this, that it's haram unless a person is in dire need and he or she would have great danger, afflict them if they don't ask. It's a very exceptional situation for a dire need, then it's okay in that case. And just to take them out of that dire need and the necessity, not to take it as a professional job. People take this as a profession, and they just make money and they earn money, and it's on a daily basis, and they accumulate wealth and so on. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تزال المسألة بأحدكم حتى يلقى الله تعالى وليس على وجهه مزعة لحم, which means that the mas'ala, or asking or begging from others, will continue to be the state of the person till he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment, and there is no even piece of flesh on his face. That means this is not something that is permissible for a person to continuously ask from others. And that's how the person will be in the Day of Judgment, coming in the Day of Judgment without flesh on his face. Why the face? Because when a person begs or asks, and this is the lower hand, this is a form of humiliation. And that's why you would find the face having that form of humiliating nature to it. And that's basically why it's not permissible unless a person, again, is in dire need. And that's something that the Prophet ﷺ said to one of the companions, radiallahu anhum, his name is Qabisa, when he came and he asked the Prophet ﷺ for money because he had took upon himself to pay some money for someone else, whether it's blood money or something like this. And the Prophet ﷺ taught him that it's not permissible unless a severe calamity happens to the person and he is in dire need of wealth or money. That means to be taken, or to be for him to take, just to get himself situated or away from such a calamity. So it's only for specific and exceptional cases where it's permissible for the person to ask. But a person, again, to ask, that means it takes away from what the Prophet ﷺ said. He comes in the Day of Judgment without flesh on his skin. The ulama, they said that the reason why begging and asking for people's wealth is something that is not permissible unless there is an exception. They said because it makes the person humiliated. And the believers should never be humiliated. A Muslim should always have honor and dignity, and never put himself or herself in a situation where they are humiliated. Right? And that's why the Prophet, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mentioned in the Quran about the poor, those who their honor and dignity would prevent them from humiliating themselves and asking others. They are to be given from the zakah money and from the obligatory zakah, and to be given charity. Those who would protect themselves from humiliating oneself. And it also, in a sense, that when a person asks from others, as if he is complaining about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him with when it comes to poverty, which a Muslim should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And a person should take the means to earn money in a halal way. Take the physical means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the individual and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. This is what the believers should do. Again, in exception, times where a person is not able to do that, great harm would afflict him. There is no harm, but not to take it as a profession, but to ask for whatever needed. And if a person can take a loan instead, and he'll be returning it, that's better definitely than asking for people's wealth and charity and so on. Some people, they take the matter so easy, and they don't have, for example, abundance in wealth. They go to the masajid, they go to Islamic centers, Muslims, and they just ask for sadaqah, or ask for charity, and they think that this is their right to ask, right? In which, again, this is something that a Muslim should avoiding to humiliate oneself and to ask from others. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, that the higher hand or the upper hand is better than the lower one. So the lower one is the one that takes, that receives. So it's again, it negates the honor and the dignity that the Muslim should be in. And also, this issue of being attached to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Muslim is taught to have the hearts attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And complaining should be between the human being and the creator of the heavens and the earth alone. And not to show the complaint to others. And not to show these means of wanting and receiving and so on. So one of the diseases that we have in many of our communities is that people would ask when they are in no need to ask. If a person would do this, he will come on the day of judgment and he will be responsible for his action, and it's a sinful act unless, again, a person is in dire need, is in a great need. So now we get to know that there is an upper hand and a lower hand. To use our hands to give. You would find in the system of the religion of Islam that it's in such a way, in a perfect way, that in any community, if the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are applied, it transforms those who would receive to make them among those who would give and those who would have the upper hand. So it helps the poor, so that when he's given from the zakah money, the next year comes, then he will be among those who would give the zakah money. And that's why when a person gives and he has the upper hand and he gives, it's not a matter of kibr or arrogance, because it's as one of the major sins is to do al-man, and al-man is to remind others of your favors upon them. So when a person gives money and he's seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, comes after even 10 years and reminds the poor that he gave him from his wealth, that invalidates the reward for such a person. And on the other side, for the poor, once something like that happens to him, he should return the money and should have dignity and honor and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. So these are different examples of how to have the upper hand and not to have the lower hand. And if a person has to, then this is an exception. But this is something that a person should take the means to transform himself to be among those who give and not among those who would take. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and to help us to use our hands and our different parts of our bodies for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and to stay away from sins. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين.
قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي